Welcome to This Week in Habsland. I'm Jordan. He's Brian. We're back to continue our season end Habsland awards. Last episode, we did a bit of a season in review and our Habsland MVP top 5. Now we're going to get into the superlatives, the nitty gritty, the little moments that you may have forgotten. And I definitely forgot until I looked at my notes. So, Brian, we have about 7 or 8 awards. I'll be honest, I didn't count how many we give out. I know we've changed them over the years. So we're going to start with the most controversial one, Rookie of the Year.
Oof, tough race here.
Now listen, in his 7 games, maybe I think you just mentioned it right before we started. If we can just, what the top 3 for Rookie of the Year would be, and then we move on quickly. I know it's a bit, but let's pull through.
The obvious number 1 is Lane Hutson.
Yes.
Ridiculous. Of the entire league, forget the Montreal Canadiens, the entire league, it's Lane Hutson with a bullet. And then after that, we have our trusted backup goaltender, Jakub Dobeš, and we have Emil Heineman. And what order you want to put those two in, that's up to you. I think Heineman probably deserves the 2 spot, but both were great. What a nice problem it is to have a difficult conversation about the second best rookie on the team. When your first also is going to win the Calder.
Yeah, it's not quite like 2 years ago where I believe we spent a good 20 minutes talking about the top 5 rookies on the team. And I believe I read the number of players that were eligible for the award in that year. And I think it was about 13 different players.
Wow.
So we didn't mention Oliver Kapanen or, I guess, technically speaking, Logan Mailloux. Anyways, there's a bunch of guys, but it was a joke. The real first award that we're giving out here, Brian, is Goal of the Year. So I have 3 written down. I think there's a clear winner here. So I'll provide my 2 of my runners up, basically. I'll pass it over to you, and you can kind of run the gauntlet and give you out who you think is number 1. I would be floored if we don't have the same winner. So one of my runners up, Patrick Laine's first goal as a Hab on the power play from Lane Hutson. First game at home against the Islanders. The wicked slap shot on the one-timer. Bell Center goes bonkers. Such a heartwarming moment for a guy who had been through so much and then has a injury to start the year. Just you could not have written it better. I mean, he just kept scoring at the beginning and it was so exciting. But that first one was just, it was I couldn't believe it when it happened. So he scored this literal goal 13 or 14 different times, but I'm going to isolate the very first one as the coolest.
I love that. I think that pure elation was what all Montreal Canadiens fans were feeling in that moment. So I love this pick.
My other one is actually also a Patrick Laine goal, but this one's completely different. This is in overtime against New York Rangers, off a rush, Caden Gooley coming up the left side in transition, finds Patty Laine right in front of the net. Laine buries it. Habs win the game. Heck of a game. Big win. I like it when there's transition in overtime and not this stupid thing where everyone just skates backwards and doesn't want to lose possession. And let's not talk about the Chicago game again. So those are my 2 runners up, 2 fun goals.
Great.
We could go on for this for 10, 15 minutes. Brian, what did you have written down before we get into the likely winner?
You know me, Jordan. I have several. I'll keep them short and sweet till we get to the eventual winner. Very early on when Nick Suzuki was having trouble putting the puck in the net, his second of the year, where he outweighted everybody in the Rangers zone and buried just a beautiful backhand behind a belly-flopped Shesterkin. That was awesome. He has another one on this list. His wraparound goal to beat Vitek Vanacek, wins it in OT versus the Panthers. That was an intense game that he ended with that beautiful wraparound. During Gallagher's early season tear, he bats a puck out of midair into the net to break the goose egg versus Toronto. The Habs lost. The goal itself probably isn't a real candidate for Goal of the Year, but I mentioned Gallagher's hand-eye coordination on the last episode, so I thought I'd include this one because I thought that goal was really sick. And the last 2 I want to mention, 2 rookies. This guy we should have mentioned in Rookie of the Year because he went point per game. Ivan Demidov's first career goal was an absolute beauty.
Yeah.
Picks up that careened puck alone in the slot, fakes a shot, goes backhand like butter. Elegant and immediate, that goal. Just great things to come from Ivan Demidov. Had to include that. And then the other guy, the actual Rookie of the Year for the Canadiens, Lane Hutson's end-to-end magic against Philadelphia from that tiny little angle off of the goal line in the corner, basically, on April 6th. Again, not the game winner, but it puts the Canadiens in the lead 2-1 early in the third, and they would eventually win this other very crucial game, 3-2. I say other because there was a goal that allowed the Montreal Canadiens to win a very crucial game, and I will let you take it over because I think we both know which one this is.
Yeah, so I do want to just briefly mention, I know I mentioned in the last episode, the Suzuki goal against Carolina, the 2-1 goal, because that's Captain Clutch coming into effect again. So that's the one I want to mention. What we're leading towards is Cole Caulfield and his just another overtime winner, which again, I feel like we're weighing these properly, right? There's a bit more, certainly you want to have, and I remember 2 years ago when you and I did all this research on what goal of the year was going to be. And then in game 81 of a lost season, Nick Suzuki scored the most ridiculous goal on the road against the Islanders. And we're like, well, that's 6 hours of research down the drain because that's the winner. That was in a game the Canadiens lost. So I feel like it's nice to see it turn to more overtime winners or playoff clinching goals. Back to that overtime winner. The San Jose Sharks were in town. I think, Brian, you mentioned it, or you described it so well on the episode we did about Macklin Celebrini's jockstrap can be found in the Tricolore
in the shop.
Souvenir shop.
Yeah.
Because the dangles that Caulfield put on Celebrini and goes roof is just, it's a wicked goal. It's probably one of the nicer goals in the entire league this year. It's an overtime winner. It was at home. Just amazing stuff from the guy who led them in goal scoring this season, and got close to 40. We talked about it. He was number 3 on our ballots. Caulfield was great, and this goal is his pièce de résistance.
Yeah, you said that one of the nicest goals of the year. Definitely puts the puck through his own legs to undress Celebrini, a prominent NHL star, up and coming star. Just a gorgeous deke, a sick shot into the top shelf, overtime winner. That crucial extra point in the standings. That's why it's him. And also, he scored 37 this season. It has to go to him. One of them was going to be the beauty that wins it.
Yeah, I mean, no other notes. I'm happy to move on to assist of the year.
Let's do it.
If it's all right.
Yeah.
So I have, quite frankly, I have 2 written down here. This is another one where, so here's the thing. I struggled with picking a Lane Hudson one to the point where I didn't write one. So I have 2 non-Hudson ones. I'm sure you have a few, Brian. So I'm okay with that. One is the play I already mentioned, the Goalie pass to line A.
Yeah.
In overtime on the rush chance to win the game. The other one is you mentioned his first NHL goal. About his first NHL assist, Ivan Demidov, just the play in of itself to eventually find Alex Newhook for the opening goal against the Blackhawks in game 81. So those were the 2 I had in terms of assist of the year. There are hundreds we could pick from. What else did you consider for your assists of the year?
2 from the playoffs, which I think I wanted to include some playoff stuff because goals wise, there really wasn't anything that even compared to Caulfield's beauty. Even Lane Hudson's goal, like shot from the corner there wasn't really anything. But assist wise, I thought there were a couple. Game 3, the precision pass from Hudson to find that like microscopic sized seam, gets the puck to Caulfield. 10 seconds left in the second period. Caulfield obviously made no mistake, buried that puck, and they went on to win that game. So that might actually end up being my pick. I'll be honest with you, Jordan, I haven't actually decided here because all of these are very neck and neck for me. Game 4, Ivan Demidov's deke to get his way into the corner, then goes around the net, backhand feed to Slav beside the net. That was less about the pass itself and more about the foresight to make that deke to give himself time and space to get behind the net and then feed it to Slav. And then the other thing about that is like the 2 young forward stars of this team, the youngest ones, connecting for that goal in game 4. That was monstrous. I'm looking at some other ones here. Oh, okay. This is the other one that could fight for it. I want to know what you think. Rangers game again. Suzuki just stuns all 4 Rangers that had converged on him and makes just the smoothest of hook passes to line A at, you guessed it, the left dot. I was at this game. The pass was perfect. Line A got the Hattie. He scored all 3 of his one-timer goals, by the way, from about 4 feet apart in total, about a queen-sized bed worth of space. He scored all 3 of his goals from. And honestly, Suzuki's assist on the second Line A goal was amazing too. Spinorama backhand to Line A on the 5-on-3. The entire building slowed down and it completely confused the timing of the Sabres. So those 2 are up there for me as well, like both Suzuki passes to Line A on his hat trick night. And then there was like a Jake Evans spinorama backhand that he made in Columbus early in the third period, later on in the season. But there were a lot of options, but no like standout. Like last year, Caulfield pulling the puck off of the glass midair to put it in the slot. That was obvious. This one isn't obvious to me. Maybe you can help me out.
The hat-trick line A assist for Suzuki would be my preferred one on that night if I had to pick. I'm happy you brought up the postseason. We do have some postseason stuff in here, but I wanted to make sure we are including it in all of these discussions. We're including the postseason. You're right about the Demidov assist to Slavkovsky. Like that, it's sick. But like you said, it's a little bit less about the pass and more about the play.
Yes.
So if we're splitting hairs here, it's a beauty of a play. But so I think it's what you said. It goes to the Hudson pass to Caulfield for one of the bigger goals of the season.
Yep.
Or the hat-trick line assist by Suzuki. So I'll let you pick. I've narrowed it down to those two. Who's getting it? Is it Lane Hudson? A big surprise, by the way. It's Lane Hudson versus Nick Suzuki.
We gave Cole Caulfield the goal of the year, and I said he had 37 goals. Lane Hudson had 60 assists. Let's give it to Hudson. He just edges out Suzuki, so that one extra assist got to go for that precision seam pass to Caulfield.
So for Hudson, by the way, so that's rookie of the year, unsurprisingly, and assist of the year. So I'm going to rack them up. Let's go to game of the year. A lot of options here, just a crap load of options. And what's the big inflection point this year is we have postseason to talk about. And how does that affect our judgment? It's also a really big, like 4 to 6 weeks before the postseason and all those games in there. Historically, Brian, you and I have viewed game of the year differently. You are looking for the most dominant Habs performance, if I am to succinctly summarize
the most complete game. Exactly.
And I'm just looking for a banger. Just something that just makes you be like, what the hell did I just watch? Please more. Right? Ain't no Carolina game sneaking in here. I don't care how well the Habs played. I know you're going to want to bring up a Carolina game.
Oh, yeah.
Because, yes, they played very well. I agree. But holy moly, I don't want to watch that. Give me the game where things are happening. So, historically, we've usually picked games in October. And I will mention opening night against the Leafs. That's going to come up again soon. But I'll just mention that quickly. I have 3 runners up, and then I'll pass it to you, and then we can see what our winner is. My 3 runners up, the late season comeback against the Senators. This is March 18th. Canadians go down 2-1 going into the third period. This was the process here where it was every game was gigantic. And what happens? Habs come out, start the third period, boom, Lane Hudson goal, 2-2. Ottawa quickly takes the lead back. Up 3-2. And then the Canadians put 4 straight past, I'm going to guess it was Linus Ullmark in it. I don't remember. Josh Anderson had the big goal. Suzuki obviously has the go-ahead goal.
Clutch.
Couple empty netters just for the laughs. Huge comeback win at home against one of your biggest rivals. 6-3 win. That is one of my nominees. Phenomenal game. It has the excitement. It has decent quality hockey. Doesn't have any quality goaltending, but that doesn't matter.
Repercussions for playoffs.
Big time.
Yeah.
The other 2 I wanted to bring up is game 2 against Washington. They lose.
Yep.
It's okay. Just, I thought from a play standpoint, like that second period, the shifts in momentum that the Canadians played decently in the first period, take the lead early in the second, and then this absolute avalanche from the Capitals. Like just wave after wave after wave, and the Habs are just dying to hold on, and they keep it close. Great game. And then game 4, which is ultimately the deciding game of the series, where Habs playing pretty good. And, credit to Tom Wilson, has the huge hit. Don't like Ovechkin's dirty stuff, but that was part of the game. That was apparently part of the series. Mangiapane has the big goal. They lose. I always bring up games that they lose. It doesn't mean they're not bangers. So those are my runners up. I have my winner, but I will hold off on that, Brian. What else did you want to submit as a nominee?
Well, just to first of all give you a props for those 3 games, because as you know, my memory is not as good as yours. So remembering games way back like this, even just a few weeks / months back, the Ottawa game, this was one that I remember feeling like, wow, that was an intense display. Games 2 and 4, exact same story, intense displays. So really glad you mentioned that one. I'll get into mine now, and I will I will begrudgingly remove the 4-0 victory against the Carolina Hurricanes at home on February 25th.
No, please put the. I used that game to fall asleep. What happened in that game?
We won, and we dominated, and they were trash, and we were great. Isn't that what it is? It's sheer dominance. No, okay, let's get real. Let's remove that one. The 3-1 win in Dallas.
Yeah,
when the Canadiens just started to figure things out, that was a game where it just became so clear that not only was the first line going to figure things out this year, but the team itself was going to figure things out. And so that one was sort of emblematic for me of like, okay, we're turning a page here. Another game against a prominent, like year after year Stanley Cup contender. You can't argue they're anything else but that, the Florida Panthers, the 4-0 win in Florida. And what I like about this game is that it was during the Montreal Canadiens being bad at hockey. They were 15, 17, and 3. Yes, they had begun to put the wheels in motion, but it really wasn't clear yet what was to come. And so I thought that this game was great. And I also love that Kirby Dach had 2 in here. And I don't think we've mentioned his name enough, partly because of injuries, partly because he didn't show what we thought he would show. But this was an excellent Kirby Dach game. So that's a lot of fun. Jake Evans also scoring shorthanded, and Cole Caulfield putting in the 4th unnecessary but fun goal. And then the last one I'll mention, another shutout, 3-0 over the Edmonton Oilers early in the season. This was the first, maybe, game that triggered the thought of, okay, they could do something here. November 18th. So still very early, still trash at hockey.
Yeah.
So I tried to find games that not only were dominant, but were emblematic of what was to come. A little bit of foreshadowing. All that being said, give us the real winner, Jordan.
Absolutely. So one I just remembered, that wacky Seattle game that the Canadiens, I believe, eventually lose in overtime after being outplayed for basically the whole game. I believe blow a 5-2 lead. Probably all in the third period, and then lose it 6-5. Everyone was upset, and that was going to be the point that cost them the playoff spot. It didn't, so we can say now, banger of a game. The obvious winner is Game 3. It's not even freaking close. It's the game of the last 3 years, quite frankly.
Yeah.
With number 1 with the bullet. Let me remind you folks what happened in this game. So Habs down 2-0, obviously, come back home. What happens immediately as the game starts? Connor McMichael, that smug son of a beat. I'm kidding. He's fine. He's one of the nicer guys. Caps take the lead early on. We're all like, well, this sucks. We're about to get swept. Alex Carrier comes back, scores with 1 minute left, or not even, in the first period. Habs go into the dressing room 1-1. Okay, we got our vibes. Habs playing great, by the way. The whole game, they played great. This is their most complete game in terms of pressure, in terms of opponent, in terms of scenario. They are fantastic. What happens? Captain Nick opens the scoring in the second period. Habs go up 2-1. And we're like, oh, holy smokes, they have a lead. Not for long, Jacob Churkin scores right away. 2-2. And then we just talked about it. The Lane Hudson assist to Cole Caulfield to take the 3-2 lead with 9 seconds left. And then also what happens right at that point, going into intermission? Now, I've glossed over it. Samuel Montembeault suddenly can't skate. And we're like, what's going on? It was hilarious. Those of us watching on TVA Sport were like, they figured out right away, Renaud what was very on to like, oh, it's the groin. He's hurt. He told Dobish to go warm up. Those that were watching on Sportsnet had no clue what was going on because Gary Galley and John Bartlett are just doing the Lord's work. So actually that Chychrun goal is in part because Monty's hurt and he hadn't come out of the game yet. Still some weird things about how that went down, but whatever. So Monty comes into the game.
Dobish.
And then, Dobish comes in for Monty. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then what happens towards the end of that second period? We covered it, but
Dobish just tries to get off the ice. He's just trying to get off the ice. That's all he's doing.
Just trying to get off the ice.
He's being a good dude, man. Go back to the dressing room, have some Gatorade.
Chaos ensues. We get the Tom Wilson meme that will live forever in perpetuity. Some unfortunate GIFs for his sake that are going to also live in perpetuity. There's a literal, it's not a fighting nature because they never drop the gloves, but they're basically fighting in the stands. There's a Washington Capitals equipment manager that's holding a stick to keep them both at bay. At one point, they push a referee to get out of the way.
Yeah.
Absolute chaos and insanity. And then we all have to remember, by the way, there's still a hockey game going on. We're all excited because the Habs are winning. What happens? Ovechkin ties it 3-3 early in the second. And we're like, son of a bitch, are you kidding me? Can they not keep a lead? Well, never fear. Through tough times, through dark times, Christian Dvorak was always there. It's amazing how it's Christian Dvorak that has the game-winning goal in the best game of the last 3 years.
That's
but
unreal.
I can't make this stuff up.
Wow.
It's not only, it's assisted by Yoel Armia and David Savard. Like, just an absolutely incredible twist.
I can't wait to look back on this in 4 years.
Yeah. Slav gets the 5-3 goal, and then Newhook gets the 6-3 goal. And I believe it's the 6-3 goal that is the Strome knocking out Logan Thompson. I might be getting that. It might have been the 5-3 goal.
No, it was the 5. It was Slavkovsky.
Right. So there's, Strome knocks out Thompson, and we all think, like, what the heck just happened to Logan Thompson? Anyways, Habs win 6-3. Thompson comes back. Monty doesn't. Affects the series, certainly.
Yeah.
Not even close. Game of the year. Brian, thoughts?
This is it, man. Who wants 2 fighting 5-minute penalties when you can take 2 10-minute misconducts?
Absolutely.
Fighting in the bench. No, this game had everything. That ridiculously intense second period that culminated with those fights. And then, the savior, Christian Dvorak, coming in. So, this game literally had everything. It was the most intense. The stakes were highest. And both teams, in terms of the play, the intensity, the physicality, everything was there, playoff hockey-wise, to live up to the stakes being that high. And so, no question, Game 3, game of the year, game of the past 3 years since we've been doing this podcast.
Honestly, other than Game 7, Colorado-Dallas, that might have been the game of the first round, right? You got to save the Rantanen revenge hat trick.
Yes, of course. That's number 1.
But other than that, it's probably Game 3, Habs Caps. So Canadians always playing exciting hockey. The anti-Hurricanes, if you may. Let's move on to Save of the Year.
Yeah, cool.
So going through this, I actually found quite a few Dobish ones, and I'm just trying to figure out now if it's because he's always out of position, which might not be a great thing. Monty has a bunch himself. Like, he's no saint. Brian, I'm going to pass this one to you because I know you did a lot more research on this one than I did. So please have at it.
So I have 3 for Monty Lemur. I have 2 for Dobesh. I think the first one I want to go to is Dobesh against an Eriksson Ek one-timer on a 2-on-1 rush, because that's the one that's freshest in my mind. It happened most recently, and he made a full extension glove save coming across the crease. This was not him being out of position. This is the opposition just playing this 2-on-1 perfectly. They both edge out a little bit to the outside to make the distance that he has to cover greater. The pass comes through at the perfect opportunity, but Dobesh says no. So that was a beauty. I want to go to the 3 Montembeault ones because I have a feeling that the second Dobesh one might be a winner. But a very early game, Monty has a very similar save, but with the blocker to stop the Devils on a 2-on-1 in New Jersey. And that was just a beautiful cross-crease blocker save. He came the whole way across. And then he had 2 of these back-to-back make 2 saves in a row things. Versus the Islanders, he stops the first shot and then makes a Snow Angel desperation save to save the rebound. And then another pair of saves in a different game. A rebound that gives JT Compher just a stellar chance, and Monty saves that second shot while falling back into his net. That was a beauty. And then, I'm just going to say it, the Dobesh that might be the winner versus the Devils. Once again, I guess a lot of nice saves happened against the Devils. Extended left pad save on Timo Meier starts it off, and then the glove on the rebound to Stone Nason. Mm-hmm. And that was just a beauty. I like that one a lot because it was 2 beautiful saves right in a row. Some of these that were 2 in a row were just like, oh, it just hit him in the chest and bounced in front of him. Right. And the rebound was nice. But this one, both were really, really nice. Did this account for all the ones that you brought to the table? Do you have others?
Yeah, the main one was the Compher save against Detroit. That it was kind of a sprawling save, but, it's a save nonetheless. It's when we're talking save of the year, it's likely going to be just something wildly acrobatic.
Yes, give me Dominic Hasek.
Exactly. So I think you may have sold me on the double Dobesh save there, which might be a bit of a cheat, but nonetheless, it is all more or less in one motion. That save. A lot of interesting moments against the Devils with the Canadians this year, I will say. There's a beautiful Caulfield goal that we didn't mention that he scores off a rush chance on Jake Allen. And then Jake Allen's name may or may not be coming up a little bit later, but he was quite good against the Montreal Canadiens this year. I'm okay with the double Dobesh, unless you feel strongly about something else.
No, I'm good with that. I think Monty Lemur in general was an exquisite goaltender playing over 60 games this year, but the single greatest moment I think was that Dobesh pair of saves.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
I would rather put a playoff one in, but there were none that were at this level. If one was even close, I think it would jump.
No.
At least my memory tells me there
not.
wasn't one that was that nice.
No. Okay, no, I'm good with that. Jakub Dobesh, save of the year, or double save of the year. We have 4 or 5 more. Brian, let's move on to performance of the year. I have 4 written down. Montembeault, opening night, Toronto. We kind of mentioned it a bit earlier. 48 saves, shutout, 1-0, monster saves in like the what you call it the fire alarm late in last 30, 45 seconds, just chaos everywhere. Actually, the Canadians, quite frankly, early on in the season, were just getting bailed out by their goalie over and over again. And that's when they sucked. So Monty opening night, that Dobesh debut,
yes,
the Florida game,
yes,
has to be in there. It has to be in there. And actually, quite frankly, there's a Dobesh 1-0 loss against Calgary that should also be in this discussion. I do find usually, Brian, with these performances of the year, we tend to skew goalie. So I have 2 player ones that I want to bring up. One is Lane Hutson in Game 3, where he became the best player on the ice. He was leading the team in ice time. He was making all the plays. He was great defensively. He was great in transition. He was great in the offensive zone. He was great on the power play. He was everywhere. He became the best player on the team that night. The other one, and this is my last one, and you can present yours and we can talk about it. You briefly mentioned a Nick Suzuki goal earlier. I think it was the overtime wraparound against Florida.
Yes.
So this is April 1st. So huge game, Captain Nick. We've talked about it a bit. I held on to this when we were talking about the MVP stuff last week. He scores 9 seconds left in regulation. He scores 21 seconds into overtime. A game they were 100% supposed to lose. Nick said, no, not happening. Ties it, scores 2 goals in 30 seconds. But one's a tying goal at 9 seconds left. One's a game winner with 21 seconds left. You need to show that to me as leader in the clubhouse because of stakes. Again, Hudson's Game 3 is fantastic, but that is my leader in the clubhouse. Brian, what did you have for performance of the year?
I have a single pick because I knew you would come at me with the real ones. I have a fun one because I was at the Line A hat trick game, and scoring 3 goals from within, I said it before, a queen size mattress amount of space on the ice is astounding to me. And then doing it, another 13, 14 times over the course of the season on the power play. That's just astounding. The feeling that was in the building when that happened was amazing. But let's get to the reality, which is that we have to decide between the passing of the torch to Hudson as the best player on the ice in the playoffs in Game 3, which is just a phenomenal thing, or Suzuki's performance against Florida. And I think you're right. That is the leader. I think I agree with you that that's the winner. We've done enough coverage of goalies stealing games, I think, in the past. And Monty had 4 shutouts this year. This was probably the best one of them. I'd say definitely it was the best one of them. 48 saves against Toronto Game 1 when the team is bad defensively.
It's not the Carolina game?
No, we've talked about that.
Right.
We talked about that. But no. Dobesh debut, great too. But no, Florida Suzuki. This is my pick. Yeah. I agree with you.
Honestly, it has to be
clutch Captain Nick, man.
It's one of those. Again, there was just moments in the lead up to making the postseason that you're learning so much about the team. And the lesson we learned over and over and over and over again was Nick Suzuki shows up for big games. And this is Exhibit A. They were supposed to lose this game. They were going to lose this game. And I was resigned to okay, well, they tried. You're not going to win all these games. Florida's really freaking good. Mm-hmm. And then for a while there, the Canadians did break Florida. Not really true. But yeah, 2 goals in 30 seconds. One to tie it, one to take the lead. Sudden death. Well done. Captain Nick, performance of the year against the Panthers at the beginning of April.
Yeah, and by the way, overall, how did the Montreal Canadiens do against the Panthers this year, Jordan?
It was a good year.
Very good year. 4-0. Wow.
Yeah, well, we're coming for you. So, 3.5 awards left. Let's start powering through these, Brian. We do this one every year. And I'm sorry we have to do it every year, but it's, I think, an important one to give out. This is the most disappointing season. But look, hey, who'd we give it to last year, Brian? Josh Anderson. Doesn't mean there's not hope.
Yeah, turned it around big time, became a different player.
This is the reverse jinx waiting to happen. There's two names, obviously, that come up. I think we've kind of talked about them both, being it Caden Primo and Kirby Dach.
Yeah.
Zero surprises. Anyone else that deserves to be in this discussion? I mean, deserves is a poor word choice, but is there anyone else that should be brought up?
I had Laine for his 5-on-5 play because I was expecting more, but I removed him entirely because a stupid amount of power play goals, 15 power play goals, I think gets you out of this. When that's your bread and butter, Patrik Laine, and you did your job. I would have liked to see more at 5-on-5, but that's not the real discussion here. No, I don't think that there's anybody else who enters this conversation. Maybe Joshua Roy, because we saw such promise last year and then he came up and didn't do that much, but he's so young and there's still so much runway that I don't want to go there. It's Primo and Dach. Did you have another one to throw in?
On Roy, we have to always remember how young he is for his draft year. So while this is his D+4, he is something like 4 weeks away from not even being eligible in that draft season. Or is it's D+, it's either D+4 or D+5 with them. I always forget. Anyways, just always remember that part with him. He's very, very young in his draft year. No, I wouldn't put Roy in there. No, it's these two. So let's hash it out to an extent. Let's maybe cap ourselves at 2 minutes because we don't like bagging on these guys. Kirby Dach, disappointing season. There were moments where he would turn it on, and there are other moments where he would just be absolutely dreadful. I believe he finished the season as a -29. And, you're seeing Suzuki finish at a +18 and Caulfield get to a +9. Even someone like Lane Hudson, who was a -20 at one point early in the season, turn it almost all the way around to be, net zero. I think Jake Evans was a +1 to be the second line center. And quite frankly, he would have probably tracked towards -35, -40 if he would have been healthy. That's a really bad look. And it didn't come around this year. There was no consistency. And it was not only that. From a playmaking standpoint, it was defensive mistakes that kept plaguing them and plaguing them and plaguing them. Primo, on the other hand, was so bad he lost his job and is on the NHL. So it's Dach stayed in the NHL because there's no other option. Whereas Primo was so poor that he cleared waivers and didn't come back. So let's just pick one guy for the sake of the award, and maybe we just move on.
So I think we just have to decide, is this disappointment in terms of what we thought they were going to be? Because nobody thought Primo was becoming the starter, maybe a few years back, but to put that on a 7th round pick who hasn't shown it yet is crazy. So I don't think realistic expectations of Caden Primo were that he would become the starter this year, let alone a very strong backup. If he became a strong backup, great. But Dach was expected to be the second line center. So is this about expectations and disappointment because of that? Or is it just flat out who played worse? Because if it's who played worse, it's Primo with a bullet. If it's not meeting the expectations that were set out in front of you, it's Dach because those expectations, a second line center is more important than a pseudo backup goalie. So I don't know in what direction you want to go with this. My heart tells me to go with Primo as the choice because Dach will be here next season and Primo likely will not be. Then again, if the reverse curse works, let's pick Dach because he'll be second line center next season. So
I think the operative, the decision here is it's disappointment, not worst. Caden Primo had a worse year in the NHL than Kirby Dach did, relative to expectations, and I think that's what we're leaning towards. So it's Kirby Dach had the most disappointing season. Sorry to give it to you, Kirby. He'll come back next year and get him. Transaction of the year. So this is everything other than draft picks, other than literally drafting Vandemidov or Atos Koivu or Michael Hage. Everything since this time last year is eligible for a transaction. It can be a call-up, it can be a trade, a signing, what have you. Waiver claim. Although I don't even know if the Canadiens made any waiver claims this year. There's a handful to bring up, Brian. So I'll go through them and maybe we'll save that's probably the winner. It might be a bit of a cheat. Alex Carrier trade. Cannot understate how much this changed the makeup of the defense. A slam dunk win for the Canadiens, trading out Justin Barron, getting back Alex Carrier in mid to late December. Everything falls into place. Canadiens have a really decent number 4 right-handed defenseman now on the team for basically free. Patrik Laine trade. Canadiens trade Jordan Harris for Patrik Laine and a 2nd round pick. Remember, the Habs get that pick. And for all his warts, certainly at 5-on-5. And we have to mention too, like he was hurt down the stretch. He had a broken finger, and that's in part why he wasn't playing. He wasn't being healthy scratched. Like there was certain ineffectiveness that he had in the postseason. It's a heck of a trade. Jakob Dobesh call up for Caden Primo, I think is another one of those inflection moments, all that happened at the same time in December, where front office said, okay, enough of this. We have to help out our coach. Let's call up Dobesh, and Dobesh delivered.
Yep.
Those are kind of the three that I had isolated beyond the potential winner. And I'm okay to one of these three being the winner. Anything else you wanted to bring up?
Not really. Those pretty much sum it up. I only had two of those: the Carrier for Baron trade and the Primo waiver / Dobesh call up. Those were the two big ones. And the transaction of the year might imply that it has the biggest connotations for this season, in which case either one of these I think is a great option. It's probably Carrier, I would guess. Both of them make it so that the Canadians make the playoffs.
Yeah.
So both of them make their season. Either one of these does not happen. I think the Montreal Canadiens do not make the playoffs, almost definitively. What bumps it a bit up for me, the Carrier for Baron trade, I will say, is the 2 more years that Carrier has on his contract. So that trade did not influence only this past season that we just ended, but the next 2. And so and maybe some after that. And that's also the reason that neither one of these is the right pick. And the right pick is, I'll throw it to you, the one that's going to influence the Montreal Canadiens for the next, hopefully, 20 years.
Yeah.
And what is that?
I normally wouldn't count this because I think it's a bit of a cheat because it's a default assumption. But because of when it happened and it was completely unexpected, it's signing Ivan Demidov to the ELC at the end of the season and him coming over immediately and us not having to wait until October and him getting into the play, becoming a pretty making some waves. That second line adrift nonsense kind of messed them up too, but you immediately saw the talent, you immediately saw his impact. He was on power play 1 by the time that they got to the biggest games in the postseason. So yes, the transaction of the year is somehow managing to sign Demidov before the season ended.
Amazing. Yeah. Kudos to you guys for getting him over so fast.
Yeah, it's absolutely unreal. Yeah, props to them. I guess maybe like a little cheat code one in here that we would not have considered is the trading up for Michael Hage. I know I said draft.
Oh, yeah, that's sure.
The draft pick themselves is not eligible, but moving up, I think, was nice asset management. And I think starting to look forward into the draft, I think that's something the Canadians have a plethora of opportunities. And we'll get into that in the next episode or the next few episodes in terms of what they can do. But that was a nice little move on the margins to eventually get the guy you wanted. So again, not the draft pick itself, but the trade. But no, it's certainly getting to meet off before the season ended. Okay, Brian, we got one. I say it's one more award, but it's giving out to 2. One's a player, one's a team. It's the nemesis of the year. So this in the past, if memory serves correctly, the lineage here is 2 years ago went to Matthew Tkachuk. He just destroyed us. There wasn't anything insidious there. He just kicked the crap out of the Canadians, and by association, the Florida Panthers were the nemesis of the year in 23.
Kicked the crap out of us.
Yeah. That was a particularly rough year. Every game was a 5-goal
Nice to get some revenge this season. Yeah, exactly.
Last season, Nikita Kucherov was the nemesis of the year. I forget exactly. I mean, I know there's a history there, but there was some specific stuff, I believe, where he further riled up the Bell Center crowd.
He hit Gooley very, very
right.
aggressively, I'm pretty sure. Knocked him into the boards, hurt him.
And then I believe also last year you made a very impassioned speech about the Los Angeles Kings being the nemesis of the year because it was just 2 ass kickings back to back.
4-0.
Yeah, it sucked. And I completely omitted that, and you were absolutely correct. So this year, Brian, nemesis of the year from a player perspective. I mean, it's one guy and one guy only. I do want to mention Brandon Montour had 8 points in 2 games.
Yes. Incredible. How's that even possible?
I don't know. It's
like, here's the thing. Dylan Cousins played 6 games against the Montreal Canadiens because he got traded and therefore played way more than he should have. He only had 6 points against the Canadiens, 3 goals, 3 assists. Pretty impressive point per game. Brandon Montour in 2 games, 5 goals, 3 assists. Are you kidding me? And he plays for Seattle.
Yeah. It's more like nuisance of the year with Brandon Montour than nemesis. Yeah, that was an interesting one. But it's obviously Tom Wilson.
Of course.
It's not close. Had a good series against the Canadiens, I will say. He had 2 goals and 3 assists. But it was more the ire he drew from the Bell Center faithful and the Habs fans. And I mean, that's what this award's about. It's not who really, at the end of the day, it's not who beats you the hardest. It's about who pisses you off the most. And it's Tom Wilson with the bullet. You know, it is what it is. That's the game.
Yeah. His style of game, he plays perfectly. I will say that. As gross as I feel saying it, but it's just flat out true from an objective perspective. The way that he plays, especially the way that it works in the playoffs, is perfection in terms of being a nemesis. And he really was that for the Montreal Canadiens in the postseason. I've said it before, I'll say it again. The biggest moment for the Capitals winning that series was his decision to not fight after the goalie hit. Yeah. That was I know it seems minute, but the fact that he doesn't fight allows the goal to go in, and more importantly, proves that he's not just a head case. He's actually a very smart and calculated guy who just absolutely demolished the Canadiens in multiple ways in that series. So definitely it's Tom Wilson. Now, 2 years ago, we did, like, by extension, it happened to be the Florida Panthers because they kicked the crap out of us. Matthew Tkachuk, that connection there. Mm-hmm. So I sort of did the same thing this year, not remembering that we had done that 2 years ago. I picked the Capitals because they beat us in the first round of the playoffs. So I just said, the most important 5 games the Canadians have played since we've been doing this podcast, I'm picking that. I'm wondering if maybe there's a better choice, and maybe you've brought something to the table. I'm not sure. I looked at what teams kind of beat us down this year, and surprise, surprise, the LA Kings did it again. The Minnesota Wild did a similar thing to what the Kings did.
Yes.
7 goals for, 0 against. Just 2 abysmal games for the Montreal Canadiens, us getting shut out a ton. The Jets destroyed us. Oh, gross. Oh, I just noticed this one. The Penguins.
Yeah.
18 goals, 6 against for the Penguins against us in 3 games. 3 awful losses to a basically mediocre to less than mediocre team.
Yeah. Every time we thought the Canadians were coming out of a rut early in the season, they would get whooped by the Pens. I believe there's a 9-2 loss in there, and there might be another 6-2 loss in there. There's one moderately close one, but they're all early season games. It's the Capitals. I mean, this is a good exercise to do, but I think it is. Tom Wilson's doing a lot of the heavy lifting, let's be honest, but it kind of has to be the Capitals. It's a little bit different when you're a better team, that there's no, although I guess, you're proving there's some things there, but I don't feel animosity towards the Penguins.
No, exactly. It's just, wow. The
Jets,
they made us look like crap.
Jets beat the crap out of us. Wild beat the crap out of us, but I don't feel animosity. And again, not that I feel much towards the Capitals, quite frankly, but
more so.
It's more so by association. I think this is going to go to the Caps unless you disagree.
Well, I'll put it to you this way. If the Montreal Canadiens were to come up against them, we'll put the Wild and the Kings aside because they're not in our conference, the Jets as well. But if the Canadiens come up against the Penguins in the first round next year, the Canadiens come up against the Capitals in the first round next year, which victory of that series would feel better? It's the Capitals.
Yeah.
No question.
Yeah.
Because it's the revenge after this team that beat us down like that.
Yeah. If you're taking out the historic stuff, I would still rather beat the Bruins. I would still rather beat the Leafs.
Of course. But putting that aside, talking about what happened this year into next, it's the Caps for sure. Yeah.
Ottawa's the one that's just meandering, but I would put Washington over Ottawa right now.
I would too.
But Ottawa's there. It's Boston and Toronto in their own tier forever. And then right now, Washington. So that's a good way of looking at it, actually. Now that we're not as crappy as we were in years past. What team would
2 years ago? Can you imagine me posing that next year when we get to the first round? No.
Okay, fair enough. So Nemesis and Player of the Year, Capitals and Wilson. Congrats to you. I don't like you guys. So with that, Brian, I think we can wrap our Habsland Awards, which was essentially a giant 2-part episode that we this year intelligently decided to record separately and not just have our brains melt. So I think with that, Brian, we'll wrap. We'll be back next week to now we start looking forward, right? As we turn the page into June. Now let's start. I feel like we really needed to wrap up the season and talk about it. Not one more time, because we're always going to keep talking about different things that happened, but in terms of an all-encompassing discussion, have one more big chat about it. And now we start shifting towards let's talk about a second line center. Let's talk about 16. Let's talk about 17. Like we're going to slowly now start moving towards that. So that's what we're going to get into our next episode, our off-season preview. And then obviously tons and tons of draft coverage coming your way. You can follow us on social media at HabsLandPod on Blue Sky and TikTok if you like what you heard. Feel free to leave a 5-star rating on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Until next Monday, go Habs.